maybe as a little bit of an introduction, you developed the Unity in Duality training together with Tarap Rinpoche. You are educational director of the Tarap Institute International. You have been working on this topic for how many years? How many decades?
I can't count.
Can't count. Since the 90s or already in the 80s?
Yeah. Also in the 80s. Yeah.
Already in the 80s. Yeah.
End of the 80s.
In the end of the 80s.
Yeah.
And Tarap Tulku Rinpoche passed on his capacity as a teacher, as the lineage holder, to you for this training. Did I miss something important there?
No, he asked me to take the full responsibility to continue whatever we have planned and to unfold Unity in Duality. Yeah.
And you're currently the main teacher, still teaching in many countries, in Germany, in Spain, in France, in the Netherlands, in Slovakia, in India, in Tarabling, in Dehradun. Anything else?
We also have institutes in Denmark, in Sweden, and in Finland. But there's not quite as much activity right now. But you mentioned the main parts, the main places where we have the UD education at the moment.
Yes, and the Danish people and the Swedish people right now come to Germany, participate here in the training. Yes, and we are happy. And just to show your depth and your width and what you bring into this topic. And you have also authored the book on the dream wisdom, building on Tarap Rinpoche's wisdom that he brought out earlier on.
Yeah.
Some other things involved in that.
Completely based on Tarap Rinpoche's material that he made available for us as a fantastic dreamer that he was. But also he was doing this amazing work to extract the universalities from the ancient Eastern tradition. Yes. And this also in relation with the topic that we want to address today about the Mandala. So this is very crucial.
And if you think about that, the title is Mandala, Harmonizing Man and Nature. I think it's a little bit different, but that direction. Why is this topic? Why was it chosen? Why is it part of the training?
I mean, the topic is completely essential to the Eastern tradition. So maybe we should start with that first, because this Mandala work is relating back to the elementary forces. And if we look at the elementary forces, then we can even say that was also basic to our science before the present more objectifying science. In the classical antiquity, it was the main way of addressing and investigating ourselves, and also in relation with nature. So these elementary forces, they are very important and really being recognized on a very big scale for humanity. So, and it's not just that, but also even in the different, not just in the Eastern tradition of Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, but also if we look into the shamanistic culture, then also elementary forces have a very strong impact.
So maybe just for those people who don't know so much about them, or who come from a bit of another tradition, when I took this course the first time, you explained a bit more about the elementary forces, and suddenly to me they made sense.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's like, what do we have? We have air, we have earth, we have water, and we have fire. But there's more about it, and space before that. Can you give us just a brief introduction, because the details will come in the course. What are they relating for? Because it's not the air or the water out there.
No,
it's something else.
You're completely right, and this is important. Otherwise, we get a very different idea about what it relates to. But when we talk about the earth element force, then it is the force of the structuralizing force, and that force that bring energy into matter. So the crystallization force. So that is a very important force. You can see that everything that is manifest in a form is an impact of. So, and then we have the water element. The water element is relating to the cohesive force, the force that connects, combine together, combining force. So that force is also completely necessary for connecting all the different components that needs to work together for any moment of existence. So we know we have so many different components just in our body that need to function together all the time. So we can see water element is absolutely necessary too. And then we have the fire element. As we know, then nothing is standing still. We are always in process. So we're actually in some kind of like developmental process. So this ongoing process of moving towards maturity, towards more this continuous process of, like, for instance, like getting more mature, getting elder, and so on and so forth. So this is part of, there's a special force pushing in that direction all the time. This is the fire element. So, and then the air element is equally important. So this is the force basic to any kind of movement, any kind of change, you can see, is dependent on the air element, and also of expansion, multiplication. They're always normally relating to the air element. And then below everything, then they talk about space element. So space element is more like the potential nature holding all the other nature. So you could say space element is more like the feminine nature in holding everything, and the other elements are emerging from there on an ongoing process. So you see, if we look at it this way, we can see that it's not just in regard to humans that these elementary forces are extremely important. It is an impact. That's why in antiquity and in all the Eastern sciences, it becomes the way you're inquiring into reality, into existence, both of ourselves and everything else, because there's nothing existing that doesn't have these five qualities. Otherwise, it wouldn't actually exist. So it's a way to talk about existence, as a way of inquiring into existence.
I was just thinking while I was listening to you, at first I was thinking a stone has all of them, right? There is not just earth element force in the stone, but there is connection, right? And there is maturing and all that. And then I thought, actually, since I'm working with organizations, even in that social structure of an organization, you have the water element force as something that is binding them together, that is cohesive. You have this movement, the air element force. Without that, the organization would not evolve and would not continue. So even there, you could use these.
And earth element, the form.
The structure and the form. Yes. And so even there we could find it. Interesting. Thank you.
It's in everything. So and one other important aspect to understand that is completely basic to these ancient traditions, it is that these elements, they need to be in harmony. If they're not in harmony, then if we look at ourselves, then we get sick. And if they are completely disrupted, and also the connection to the space element, to the enfolded order, is not intact, because there should be constant enfoldment, unfoldment. So if that is disrupted, then we die. So this is very important to see this in this bigger perspective, when we discuss the mandala, then all this is behind.
Yeah.
So
and
that also makes claimants that all the medical sciences in the Eastern traditions, they are based, and also some of the shamanistic traditions, I think, if not all, they are based on the elementary forces and of harmonizing the elementary forces. So they actually, there is a big part, is a preventative medicine for preventing. It is to make sure that these elements are in harmony.
Yeah.
So it's on that basis that actually the medicine are being given.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, and for me, it's because I'm in this project with this bank right now. Yeah. Even there, I haven't done it up to now, but talking to you right now is I can think about these 5 elements in terms of what is happening there, and where do we have too much and where is too little, and what needs to be balanced out so that that organization can move on and become more sustainable, because that's the topic actually.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's also based on that Tara, he can talk like that, because this is the work he has been doing for us, is to draw out these universalities.
Yeah.
So these are the universalities. Even you can find them in the Christian mystics. They also relate to the elements. Time I was inquiring a little bit into, I was asked to talk about the soul in a conference, and I was reading some material from the Christian mystics, and they were discussing whether the soul was an impact more of the air element or the fire element. So
okay, interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I had heard about the elements before. I had worked with the elements before. I had even gone to a Vipassana retreat from Goenka, and he talks a lot about elements, but there I didn't get it. The Mandala course, with your explanations, then I said, that makes sense to me. It's not just a belief, but now I can inquire myself.
Yes.
And that brings me a bit to my next question. How do you work in that course so that people learn to work with the elements, the element forces?
So Tara found that it's very important that we work on these, like in the medical science. They are, of course, relating to the physical level, but not only the physical level. But when we think about a medicine, we are thinking more of the physical level. But in the Eastern tradition, they're both concerned with the physical level, the mental level, and the energy level. So, and that's the same when we discuss about the elementary forces. Then we are naturally parting in these 3 levels, and we are giving practices for each element at these 3 levels. So there's a lot of practices that we are giving, and we are going through and engaging in order to harmonize ourselves, both on the physical level, on mental level, and energy level, or energy, you can say deep body mind level. So this is basically what we are going to do. It is I will in the course I will introduce these different aspects, and then we will engage. So there will be a lot of work on practical work on trying to join the different elementary forces on the different levels. So each of them with different features that we can feel is basically, it's a feeling. We have to really join this, we do by means of feeling. So we really have to join ourselves. So you see, it has many different goals, this kind of practice. It is partly to really join ourselves, which often we don't happen to do. We are often out of ourselves. So the first part is really to join ourselves physically, but also mentally on the different aspects, and not just the conceptual aspect. And then also energy-wise. Normally we don't really join so much energy-wise, but really to allow ourselves to help our energy of the different forces to rise and then to harmonize. So this is on all levels what we are going to work on. And
so
then
it's quite an experiential journey. It's explanations as well, but it's more really going into the experience yourself with your help, with leading practices that we can do. I would be guiding, but it is one should be aware of that one have to engage in this course. We can't just listen and not do anything, but really have to do.
And there's normally we make available also a possibility for expressing the elementary forces, not like a normal, like mandala. I have a mandala, very more schematic mandala behind me. So there you can see the different elementary forces is basic also to the mandala when we discuss spiritual at the spiritual level. So there are 4 basic colors you can see. There's a red to the top there, and then there's a green and the blue and the white, and then in the center normally there's the 5th element. So all the 5 elements are represented as a basic of the mandala. But in the course we are not drawing traditional mandalas. No, it's more an expression from ourselves, just being in contact, completely joining each elementary force. Then we are supported to make some just spontaneous drawings that needs no skills at all. So this is a possibility and opportunity, and then we can look at all the drawings in the end. Or maybe some of them on the way as time for.
Yeah. I think I still have my drawings somewhere out there from the last course because I kept them. For me, it was actually, when I did it the first time, it was really surprising what came out. And if I remember correctly, you give a little bit of teaching about the elemental forces and about how we can enter ourselves so that we can experience them, that we can feel them. And then we go into one element deeper, experiencing it. And from there, we allow our body or our experiential part to pick colors and to draw whatever shows and emerges at that moment, right? And then not having a fixed image beforehand, but trying to really listen on a feeling level, in a way, what wants to express itself.
And not just listening, but just really spontaneous drawing. That means it's really from this being in contact with the element, then spontaneous drawing. Then also from these drawings, you can see which of the elements are more dominating. Because even in each of the drawings, you have all the elements. We cannot avoid. So that also gives us a clue to what kind of practices would be very useful for ourselves to continue with after the course.
So basically we could see if we have too much earth element and too little higher element, we could do something to increase higher element, right?
So this is really the meaning behind this kind of practice, that that one can see where one could really do some work by oneself in order to harmonize and avoid problems, both on a physical level, mental level, and energy level.
You have taught this course quite a few times.
Oh yes.
Very many places. How would you say people benefit from participating? What can they get out of it for themselves?
Yeah, like I said before, I think the most important, the beginning, it is to really get practices so we can really join ourselves. Most of the time we talk about ourselves, so we are at a distance of ourselves, and then when we are conceptual, then it's not, we are not holistic. every time we mention something, we are screening everything else out. So it depending what we mention, then we get some idea.
Mhm.
So it's very important. This we can see from this ancient tradition. It's basic for the UD training altogether. It is that we need two types of minds working together all the time. We need a language mind, and we need a kind of mind or perceptive capacity that is not determined by language. So here, the feeling, we can have feeling on many different levels and many different types, but feeling always have this capacity of joining.
Mm.
So what we can see from all the ancient traditions, that the joining is the most important all the time. So the joining should be the basis. Then we can do something. It's also the same in the shamanistic traditions. Instead of like what we normally do in the modern world by objectifying and going out of the self, looking from outside, both in regard to ourselves and everything else, then in the ancient traditions, they go inside in order to join, and from there they can connect in a perceptive way in joining in relation with everything else at all different levels. And therefore you can say that instead of trying to control nature from outside, they're joining nature from inside, and then one have much more possibility to change and to harmonize. So this is like, if you say in a very essentially, a difference in the way of modern culture and this ancient culture.
You once said, and it reminds me a bit of what you just told us about it, that as modern people, we have learned to manipulate and control our environment so good that we have forgotten to do this with ourselves.
Yeah.
And to be in control, or to really work on ourselves. And what you just described reminds me of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also now we have all the environmental problems coming up more and more forcefully. And there, I think it's very important to be concerned with these ancient teachings, because if we really want to do something and want to do something effectively and to see this really get proper solutions, then we have to start thinking, when I just use conceptual mind, do I always get the complete solutions, or do I just get obsessed by a certain way of solving problems that might actually eliminate what is also necessary to take into account?
Yeah.
There in the ancient tradition, they did opposite. They used the direct perception as a basis. It's not just in relation with oneself. One should not misunderstand in that way. No, if I use direct perception in the meaning like feeling, for instance, if I use feeling in relation with myself, then also I am in feeling relation with everything else. And that cannot eliminate. So then I have that basis, and then also they use image on that basis. So you can also see. So you have seeing and feeling, and then in relation with both. So the imagery is coming up, and which is a strong force too. So if one is using these two as the basis, and then conceptual mind on the basis of this, without leaving this, what we call direct perception, not misunderstanding that direct perception can experience everything. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Direct perception just meaning that we don't use language and elimination as the base. So in that way, we can, in my view, we can, and in all the ancient traditions, I know very well, we can get a much more genuine holistic approach, and we can get many different possibilities merging that could maybe be extremely helpful in this condition. And then we can conceptually, we can join and make structure on that basis, which is what we do conceptually all the time. It's a structuralizing force, earth element. So, but we have all the other elements at the same time. It represented in the direct perception. So you could also see it in this way, that especially for us in this condition we have at the moment, it's extremely important that we open up to all these more direct perceptions and learn to use the indirect perception, the conceptual mind on that basis without leaving. Then I think we have a much better chance to really deal with our environmental crisis, but not only that, but also all other kind of crises.
And they are very much connected in many, many ways.
Yeah.
I
think I should sum up all the what we could get out of this course. I think this is real essential.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me just add one thing to clarify for those who don't know the UD framework. Feeling is not emotion.
No.
There's quite a bit of a difference between feeling and emotion, but it's really feeling the sensation.
You can't say there's a big difference, but emotion is a little part of what we call feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what we discuss now is absolutely not emotion.
Yeah.
It is the capacity of joining that we need to use as a basis of conceptual mind. And if that is emotional, then we have the tendency to build it even further conceptually. So of course, this is not what we are in for, but we want to make a firm basis in relationship with ourselves and everything else. So that also gives us this possibility to harmonize, but also to find more solutions that can work for the future and for these big problems that we cannot really overview. There's so many different aspects to it. So it needs other capacities to open up.
And I think if I look at the people I've been working with on the climate change topic and other sustainability topic, there's a big, both on the side of the facilitators, the coaches, but also the organizations, how do we move from discussing, talking about it, into acting? Because we need to change a lot of things. And there's a lot of potential to change at the same time. But we have to do it and not get stuck in discussing and not get stuck in the emotions connected to it that prevent us. Could you see these practices help support us in that way?
Yeah, and I think there are different aspects to it as well, because another aspect that is not part of what I just mentioned before is that if we should really, in my view, if we should really take care of nature beyond of our own interest, if we should really genuinely want to take care of nature, then we need somehow to be in contact with nature in a different way. So what I'm envisioning is the possibility, if we could join the nature in ourselves a little bit deeper, then our own protective field, we have a protective field of that with which we identify with each one of us. We take care of ourselves, we take care of our near family, and maybe to some extent also an extended family. That with which we associate, or a certain group, or whatever it is. But the basic point, the middle one, is myself. Okay, this is our normal. But if we could join nature on a deeper level and really get in deep connectedness with ourselves and nature, where they are joining, like for instance through the elementary forces, is amazing, because it is what we all have together, and being an impact of that. So if we could really join ourselves and from ourselves, from these elementary forces, join to nature, then nature could become a part of our protective field, because we would simply extend, in connection with nature, we would extend these elementary force, or for instance, through elementary forces. So, and then we would generally take care of nature because we can feel that it is part of ourselves. Not just thinking that, oh yeah, we are dependent on nature. No, it's still very conceptual. We have to feel it. So we're actually realizing this interrelationship in a much deeper way.
Yeah.
So I think this is another additional importance of engaging in this kind of work.
Yeah. So in a way, instead of saying there's a tree and I can use it as wood for making heat or for building furniture or something, that would be quite objectifying. Or we need a tree just to recycle the air to get the carbon dioxide out and oxygen back in. We can see, well, we are similar in many ways, and there's something we share, and it's something that is really valuable, and on some levels we are one.
Yeah, and not just understanding it and not just seeing it, but really feeling, because it's feeling. Like we take care of a child. If we have the feeling relation, we take even more care of the child.
Yes.
We take care of near ones. What is near ones? Is those with whom I have a good feeling relation. If I have this undisturbed feeling relation with some people, then I'll go out of my own frame and do whatever.
Yeah.
But if that is not there, then I basically, it doesn't matter too much to me.
Yeah.
I can reason it, but basically it doesn't really touch, it doesn't really hurt when something is happening with nature. But if it's part of myself, part of my extension of myself, then I can actually feel, say, wow, we're in the same boat. Like Sandra Rinpoche once said, but you remember when we were at inauguration of Terrabling in 2014, he's saying we are sitting on the branch that we are cutting, and we are cutting it very fast.
We're sitting on the outside, not the inside of the branch.
We're not realizing it.
Yeah. And I think nowadays we realize it more and more. But still, we need to connect to it and not be frozen by fear, and not really push it away because we don't want to experience the negative emotions, actually, or the uncomfortable emotions.
Yeah, and that's another part, Clemens, that we really need to feel and to relate, and not just to conceptualize.
Yeah.
So there are many reasons for this kind of work, but one should not misunderstand this work that I can just work on myself and get into harmony and that's it. No, it's open up for much bigger work that we could do very efficiently, or
that
become more efficient.
Be the entrance in the spiritual work, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking a little bit about time. And because you told us a lot about this course, and there will be the course, so anybody who is interested can join us in this course to go deeper. What I think, is there anything else where you say this is something that people who are interested in the course, they should know, people who want to come to the course, or who say, I'm not 100% sure, anything else where you would say this would be important for them to know?
I mean, there might be a group of people that are interested in the spiritual quest and that find, okay, what we are proposing is more like a personal development, so maybe it's not so interesting for me. And for that, I will just there's one point I didn't mention. I pointed to the basic of the Mandala, traditional Mandala, but actually, if we should really deal with the traditional Mandala, we need to get in contact with the elementary forces. Elementary forces are used for many different things in the spiritual tradition, especially if we are interested in the tantric tradition. Elementary forces has a very strong impact, and also as a means of transformation. So the transformation process, they are talking about the transformation process of just falling asleep is paved by the dissolving of the different elementary forces of our normal conditions in order to join a deeper condition. So for these transformation processes, also the transformation process that we go through when we die is also drawn in the same way of these elementary forces, very similar to the process of falling asleep. And also the unfoldment into another level, into spiritual level, etc., or different levels of the spiritual path. Then for that as well, we need the unfoldment of the elementary forces. So we need to be really join the elementary forces and master the elementary forces in order really to master any of these traditions. And part of that is also like the Mandala, which is basic to any of the tantric practices. So I would greatly recommend this group as well, that to really do this basic work that is normally not presented in this way. And then we might fail to really connect. And again, we go into a mental idea about as a basis for our work. And their therapy deeply recommended that we make this work of really joining the basic elementary forces as a way to really not just integrate, but really participate in these different processes of presented in the spiritual tradition.
So in a way, maybe just putting it a little bit different is by connecting to the elementary forces, we can not only balance and harmonize them, but in that process we do inner transformation to move deeper and deeper in our spiritual work.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking back to, I think it was 2018, before the start of the current training here in Berlin, we did a workshop on, we called it at that time, Inner Climate Change for Outer Transformation.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking what we are actually doing is inner transformation, for instance, for climate action, for doing sustainable action on the outside, on the one hand, but also to move in a deeper level in ourselves so that we can connect in a very different way. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And there you're touching on another topic that is equally important, that if we should really meet the different challenges in a good condition in ourselves, then also it matters that we are really in very good command of our elementary forces, so we can keep balancing them, so we can become strong enough in ourselves to deal with the challenges in order not to get like depressed, not to and not to get neurotic in any way, or out of ourselves under these different conditions. So that would not be helpful. And also, if we have possibility to join more our inner forces, and then we can even be helpful for others, and hopefully also for nature.
Thank you, Lene.
Not to destroy nature.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have, if you still have time, do you still have time?
Yeah.
I would have two more questions, actually.
Okay.
One question that came up is because we talked so much about the experiential part, right? And now there are people out there, and I used to be one of them, that are very much conceptual, very good at thinking things through, very great scientists, great picking things apart and really making concepts around them and so on. They may ask the question, can I join as well?
Yes, sure. Sure, everybody can join, and we shouldn't think that particularly scientists who really move ahead in our culture, that they are only intellectual. I think actually they use some of these capacities, maybe without knowing so much about them. So maybe also for these people, it's a very good idea, because then they could get more genuine access to these other capacities. We have so many capacities we're normally not opening, or they just open at random because we have no mastery of opening them otherwise.
Yeah. So basically, we can get mastery for these deeper, more subtle types of conceptualizing minds, intellect.
Yeah, and not just that, but like I said, to work these two types of perception together.
Yeah.
So normally this other perception come up when we're not sitting behind the writing desk. We're doing some more creative work, and also in the night, sometimes in the dreams, and but if we could really manage to rework them, which was normal in both shamanistic and traditions, and also in this ancient Eastern tradition of the spiritual, this could really be helpful in general. And what you're just mentioning is that when we really manage to get this good cooperation, then with deepening what we could say the grounding of for the way I'm experiencing, for deepening that, then the way we use conceptual mind become more subtle.
Yeah.
So so that is another possibility, but of course it needs work, it needs engagement, it needs work. But the possibility is there that we can open for these capacities so they become more available for us, not just at random.
Yeah. This is what I'm trying to use whenever I give a training or a workshop, because then it's easier to listen to the different people in the group and to open up to what they need and where they are at, instead of being in my own judgment or my own idea about what is needed right now, as an example as well. Thank you.
Great.
You have another training that is opening up right now. And I was thinking, do we do an extra interview? But given that we've been in this so long already, maybe you tell us a little bit, because it's quite an extraordinary training. And it's coming up, I think you start sometime in September, if I'm right. You know, the one where you have the virtual training plus the Tarap-Ling sessions.
Yeah. So we have this unity and duality training that we normally make available in the different Tarap institutes. So it has normally been just Germans in Germany. Now we sent some Nordic people there too, but this is the norm, because we have translation to your language in the different institutes. So but now we like to make a training where we also invite Indians, and some Tibetans as well. And in this training, we will make it half the time on Zoom. That means we will actually give 4 courses a year, 4 5-day courses, and 2 of these will be on Zoom. And 2 of them will be based in India, in our institute there, Tarap-Ling in Dehradun. Beautiful place. So, and with very good facilities. So it's almost, it's like our normal facilities there. So this you're very welcome to ask through your institute.
Through the webpage or the Tarap Institute International website.
Yeah, it's actually on the website now.
Oh, good. And then I'll put it on the German as well.
Yeah. So
and the 2 courses.
And it starts in October.
In October.
The first course.
And there is a pre-meeting sometime, right?
There's a pre-meeting that we arrange both in June here, and there will be one in September.
Okay, so there's even people who start to look at it after, and it's the year 2023. If anybody looks at this later on, watches it later on, and the 2 courses in Dehradun in India will be together. They will be
two courses after each other.
Yeah,
and it will be in February.
Yeah, so people don't have to travel twice, but it's once there. The whole curriculum is put into 3 years. Is that correct?
It's slightly more than 3 years, but
Okay.
it would be shorter than the normal.
The normal.
Because normally we have 3 weeks in the year, but
Yeah.
here we have 4. Yeah.
Okay.
So normally it's 5 years.
Okay. Great. So for anybody who is interested, will there be any translation or will it be all in English?
At the moment, it will be in English, but if there's a group in a certain language, then we could arrange. Actually, at the moment, I think there will be Spanish because there's a Spanish group. But if there's a German group, then also we could arrange in German.
We would need to have sufficient participants because it's quite a bit of work for translation.
Yeah. On Zoom, it's not a problem. But if we have if we need the translator to travel to India, of course, there need to be enough to pay the there needs to be enough money to come in to manage that.
Exactly. And even on Zoom, it's one translator for one person is quite a lot of work for that.
Yeah. But this is on Zoom, it's manageable, but for the 2 courses in India, we need to be
And I think in addition, we have quite a bit of experience delivering these courses on Zoom as well because of the pandemic. So it was quite positive experience that it does work. I think we were all quite surprised how well it works.
With the breakout rooms, and we could make practices together and everything. It really was possible. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
If there's any questions on that, people will find a link on the website, also with an email connected so that they can inquire on it.
So there's contact to 3 institutes that could arrange it together. There's a Spanish institute, the Indian Institute, traveling, and then there is in Denmark. So you are very welcome to contact either of these.
Fantastic.
And then also there will be a new German training coming up.
That will be coming up. I think in 2025. That's why I didn't mention it yet so much, but we still have a few courses, in particular the Art of Relating courses coming up. This is not open for anybody, but because it's at the end of the training, we need all these other elements to come there and to really be able to recognize and to experience what is happening. And then there is a few spiritual development courses. Love, compassion, Vipassana, we have, right?
Vipassana is Shamatha Vipassana.
Shamatha Vipassana.
Yeah. And then entrance to Dzogchen.
Entrance to Dzogchen. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I was looking forward to that because I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
And some of these will be open to the public again, and you'll find that on our website for the German courses. Yeah. So thanks a lot, Lene.
Thank you so
much. Really
much.
appreciate that.
Thank you. And see you soon.
See you soon.